What do we really mean when we say someone is resilient? It turns out we might be getting it all wrong. We usually think of resilience as being some kind of impenetrable fortress, right? A person who's just unshakable, who never cracks under pressure. But the actual science tells an entirely different and honestly, much more interesting story. So forget the idea of being a rock just taking hit after hit without reacting. That's the myth. The reality is so much more dynamic. True resilience is way more like a spring. It gets compressed and bent out of shape, but its whole purpose is to bounce back. Or think about a dandelion, thriving in a crack in the sidewalk. It's not about ignoring the pressure, it's really all about how you recover from it. So resilience starts up here in your mind. It begins with how we see the world. Research shows that how we interpret an event has a much bigger impact on us than the event itself. In one study, people who saw a graphic video and thought of it as terrifying were way more likely to have intrusive memories later. The psychological damage wasn't just from the video. According to the researcher, it was almost entirely from the interpretation of it. And this is the absolute key. As a writer, Anais Nin once wrote, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. When bad things happen, it is so easy to fall into the why me or victim mentality. But truly resilient people learn to reframe the situation. They make a shift from asking, why me, to asking, okay, what now? That simple question moves you from a place of powerlessness to a place of action. And this shift brings benefits across the board. For example, a meta-analysis of 60 studies show that people with higher resilience experience less depression and anxiety, all while enjoying higher life satisfaction and positive emotion. A study even found that adults with medium and high levels of resilience had 30% lower annual healthcare spending. Their mental strength translated into physical and even financial well-being. Now, this whole mindset thing isn't just some nice-sounding philosophy, nor is it just something above the shoulders. Research shows that resilience manifests in your heart, blood, and even neural function. To prove it to you, let me first tell you about a study from the US Naval Special Warfare Command. Here, researchers tested some of the most elite soldiers on the planet, and what they discovered reveals the key to resilience. So, scientists took a group of Navy SEALs and Green Berets, the pinnacle of military, mental, and physical toughness, and gave them a really simple stress test. They had to hold their breath for just 30 seconds. When you hold your breath, CO2 builds up in your blood, which makes your brain's blood vessels dilate to allow more oxygen in. It's a perfect window to see exactly how the brain reacts to stress, and more importantly, how fast it recovers. And here's a big surprise. The most resilient soldiers, they didn't feel or show less stress. The brain blood flow spiked just as high as everyone else's. The difference was how fast they bounced back. Their brains returned to normal much quicker. They had learned not to waste precious energy after the stress was gone. So, to push this idea further, another study examined people undergoing the legendary Navy SEAL Hell Week. Candidates are allowed only about 4 hours of sleep over 5 days. It is one of the most brutal selection processes in the world. And most people, 65 to 80%, drop out. So, what was the biological difference between those who made it through and those who didn't? Well, it came down to this. Researchers collected blood samples and found that everyone had elevated cortisol levels, the body's primary stress hormone. But the successful candidates showed a significant difference in DHEA, a recovery hormone that buffers cortisol. Their DHEA to cortisol ratio was 31% higher than that of the trainees who quit. The best way to think about this is like a car. Cortisol is your body's gas pedal. It gets you ready to deal with a threat. But DHEA, that's the brakes. It's the recovery hormone that brings everything back to normal. The successful SEALs didn't just have a powerful engine, they had incredibly effective brakes. So all of this brings us to a much better, much more accurate definition. Resilience isn't about being bulletproof or someone who never gets stressed. It's about having a powerful, efficient recovery system. And interestingly, other research has shown that resilience may be tied to more efficient neural processing of stress. Marines who had higher resilience through mindfulness training showed significantly different brain activation after a threatening situation. Brain areas like the right insula and anterior cingulate cortex, which are involved in interoception, that is, being able to sense the internal state of the body, emotion regulation, and stress processing, are activated less and even negatively in resilient Marines. So the big question is, how do you do it? How do you build your own personal recovery system? How do you develop resilience? Well, the good news is that research points to some really clear, practical ways. First up, like we've talked about, you've got to reframe your mindset. Make the shift from why me to what now. Motivational self-talk is another powerful tool. Rather than the negative chatter that often fills your minds, like saying, I'm an idiot, I'm not good enough, or I can't do it, try intentional and purposeful positive self-talk. Research shows this increases focus and executive control. Resilient people learn to say, the future will be okay, and I will do what is necessary. Second, you can actively practice optimism. A really simple and effective technique is to visualize your best possible self in the future. Get a pen and paper and write down what your ideal life would look like in the future. Once you have a good vision, your brain and body are primed for what is possible and will help you work towards that goal. Third, this is a big one and one that may sound simple, but trust me, it's probably the most important. Build positive routines. Mastering your sleep, nutrition, and exercise gives you a solid foundation for when things get tough. Just imagine having to deal with difficulty while you're malnourished or sleep deprived. Make the basics robust, and everything else will get better. Otherwise, it's like trying to drive a car with the handbrake on. You're doing yourself a disservice if you neglect the fundamentals. Finally, and this one might be overlooked in the quest for resilience, ask for help. Strength is not just about toughing it out and doing everything alone. Real strength is about knowing when you need others. There's another crucial point. We shouldn't think of resilience as some emergency tool we only pull out during a crisis. You can't choose to be resilient or cultivate it when you just need it. We really should see it as a daily practice. It's the ultimate form of preventative medicine. And look, if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know if I have that in me, I've got some news for you. Yes, there are some factors like upbringing that may affect your ability to be resilient, but studies from major events like 9/11 consistently show that the vast majority of people, about 60 to 80%, show resilient outcomes after facing adversity. What this tells us is that the capacity is already in most of us. The real question is whether we're actively working on it. If you take away just one single thing from all of this, please let it be this. You don't start training for a marathon on the morning of the race, right? Well, it's the same thing here. You have to build your mental and physical resilience before the weight of the world starts crashing down. It's all about being proactive and not reactive. Because, look, challenges are going to come for every single one of us, and that's a guarantee. The only real question left to answer is, what are you doing today? What tiny victories are you building on that are going to make your tomorrow and your ability to bounce back that much better? I hope you liked this video. If you have any stories of resilience from your own life, please share them in the comments. Hearing about other people's victories is also a way to develop motivation. Make sure you like and subscribe to receive more science-based upgrading content.